What if Harden was never traded to Houston? What if Durant didn't join the Warriors? What if Westbrook stayed with the Thunder, carrying the team each game? Could the Thunder's Big Three have won the Larry O'Brien Trophy? As the video shows the Heat coming back to win 4 straight and eliminate the Thunder 4-1. For a moment, it feels like you're back in the 2011-2012 NBA Finals. Seeing the Big Three's backs, full of regret, you swear to change everything. Since fate gives you a chance to start over, bringing you to the moment before it all began. This championship, you'll make sure you win it yourself. Not just one, but a dynasty. As a reborn person with memories of the next 10+ years, determination alone is far from enough. You need money, an amount so vast it would make the entire NBA take notice. You need money, enough to wrest control of the Thunder's fate from the hands of management. At this moment, your mind is working faster than ever before. Fortunately, the original owner inherited billions from their parents, so buying a small market team like the Thunder isn't a problem. But the NBA isn't something you can just buy with money. It's a top-tier club, and any new member must be approved by the vast majority of owners. Looks like you'll need to come up with a detailed plan for this. Then, your gaze shifts away from the O'Brien Trophy, your eyes sharp enough to pierce through time. You turn and walk against the tide of celebrating fans, leaving the arena without looking back. Early in the morning, you leave Miami and head to Goose City. On the plane, you don't rest. Instead, you take out your laptop and get to work. You create a new encrypted folder and name it the Thunderhammer Project. The core objective of this plan is singular: to become the Thunder's absolute majority owner before the new season begins. To achieve this, your Thunderhammer Project is divided into 3 major steps. Step 1. Know yourself and your enemy. You need to learn everything about the Thunder, especially information not found in public financial reports. So, you start frantically searching for data. The current owner, Clayton Bennett, is a shrewd and tough businessman. Do you remember? He moved the Supersonics to his hometown, Goose City, and renamed them the Thunder. This person has an emotional attachment to the team and won't sell easily, but if under huge financial pressure, he's not unshakable. Next, you analyze the team's finances. In 2012, the Thunder were valued at $348 million, and like most teams, their main income is from broadcasting rights, ticket sales, and some sponsorship. But you find a key point: the luxury tax. You remember it was the final straw that broke up the Thunder's Big Three. According to the new collective bargaining agreement, the penalties for the luxury tax were extremely harsh. If they were to renew the contracts of Durant, Westbrook, and Harden at the same time, the Thunder would have to pay tens of millions of dollars more in luxury tax every year. For an owner like Bennett, who isn't among the wealthiest, that amount of money would be truly painful. He runs the team more like a carefully calculated business, and this is his Achilles heel. The second step of the plan involves the key figure, the Thunder's general manager, Sam Presti, who is renowned as a draft genius. He was mentored by the legendary Spurs manager, and the Thunder's roster, Durant, Westbrook, Harden, Ibaka, this lineup overflowing with talent, was almost entirely built by him. Deep down, you know he wanted to keep Harden more than anyone else, but he was just a high-level employee who had to carry out the owner's wishes. If Bennett is the fortress you need to conquer, then Presti is the key to opening its gates. To do this, you have to approach him in a way that doesn't arouse suspicion, but still makes him take notice. Requesting a meeting directly as a wealthy individual would only make him wary. That's not the best approach. You need to become a kindred spirit, someone equally obsessed with basketball and skilled in data analysis, a true superfan. In your mind, you begin to craft the perfect script, followed by the third and final step of your plan: public opinion and the league. When acquiring a small market team, the greatest fear is resistance from local public opinion. You absolutely cannot be seen as a barbarian in their eyes. You must present yourself as a savior, not a plunderer. Your Chinese heritage is both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that you can present the league commissioner with a grand vision of expanding into the Chinese market. But in order to win over the people of Oklahoma, a conservative state, you need to show even more sincerity. That means you need a flawless PR strategy, with its core being a clear and bold promise to do whatever it takes to keep the Thunder's Big Three together and make a run for the championship. This is exactly what every Thunder fan wants to hear, and it's also the strongest criticism of Bennett's stinginess. By tying your own goals to the wishes of the fans, you can claim the moral high ground. Just then, the plane begins its descent, and the endless sea of clouds outside the window gives way to vast green plains. Arriving in Oklahoma City, you close your laptop and let out a long sigh of relief. The outline of the Thunderhammer plan is now clear, but you know that this is still just talk on paper. The real challenge will only begin the moment you set foot on this land. After getting off the plane, you find an unremarkable motel near the arena to stay in. Planning to spend some time here to conduct on-the-ground research. Your goal is to truly understand the mindset of the most grassroots fans. Not only that, but you also need to find a few helpers. So, you contact your fund manager, Daniel Miller, and ask him to recruit a team to help you carry out this plan. Daniel lives up to your expectations and quickly recruits 3 people for you. a top-notch lawyer, Liam, a shrewd financial analyst, Sophia, and a top-tier public relations manager, Amanda. He also establishes a company in New York called Summit Capital. Time flies, and soon it's May, the annual NBA Draft Combine. General managers, coaches, and scouts from all the teams gather here. For this occasion, you change into sportswear, sling a backpack over your shoulders, and look every bit the part of a basketball-obsessed graduate student. In this way, you successfully sneak into the venue, under the guise of a sports data analysis intern. You also managed to strike up a conversation during halftime with your target for this trip, Thunder General Manager Sam Presti. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Sam Presti, the GM of the Thunder?" you ask, your tone carrying a hint of uncertainty and the excitement of meeting an idol. Presti stops in his tracks, looking at you with some surprise. "That's me." "Oh my god, it really is you," you exclaim, acting utterly thrilled. "I really admire your team-building philosophy. Durant, Westbrook, Harden. 3 lottery picks, 3 future MVPs. That's practically the hand of God. No one can resist such precise flattery." A faint smile appears on Presti's usually tense face. "Thank you," he replies politely. "You two, here to observe the draft?" Seizing the opportunity, you immediately hand him your forged business card. "Yes, sir. My name is Hua Feng, and I'm an intern at a sports data analytics company." Right after introducing yourself, you throw out the real bait. "I'm especially interested in basketball data models, particularly for players like Harden. How do you quantify the value of someone as a sixth man versus their value as a franchise cornerstone for another team?" This question is like a knife, striking precisely at the most sensitive spot in Presti's heart. Exactly the dilemma that's been tormenting him all summer. Should he keep Harden as the sixth man, or let him go? Presti's expression changes completely. For the first time, he looks at you seriously. Seeing this, you know he's hooked, so you continue. "Actually, we can build a championship window probability model. If you keep Harden, the Thunder's chance of winning a championship in the next 5 years might be 60%. If you let him go, that probability could plummet to 20%. So, how much is that extra 40% championship probability worth? Is it worth paying over $10 million more in luxury tax each year? That difference is Harden's true value to the Thunder." As soon as you say this, Presti's pupils contract sharply. The concept of a championship window probability model is so novel and incisive, it completely overturns his previous way of thinking. He's now eager to discuss this model with you right away, but the meeting is still ongoing. So, he arranges to talk with you after the tryout. After the tryout, you wait for Presti at a nearby cafe. He arrives in casual clothes. He comes to the meeting alone. "Hua, let's get straight to the point." Presti takes a sip of coffee and gets right to it. "About the model you mentioned this morning, I'd like to hear your thoughts in more detail." He addresses you directly by your name, not as Mr. Hua. This shows he now sees you as an equal in this conversation. You realize that the real exchange is about to begin, and you must present something truly impressive from the future to shock him. "Alright, Sam," you naturally switch to using his first name. "Before I explain my model, I'd like to ask you a question first. In your opinion, which team in NBA history had the kind of talent that can compare to the current Thunder?" Presti falls into deep thought. He slowly replies, "Maybe the Lakers of the 80s, with Magic, Kareem, and Worthy, or the Bulls of the 90s. You immediately nod. "That's right, but they all have one thing in common. Their core players were at different stages of their careers, veterans leading the rookies. But the Thunder are different." You shift the conversation. Durant is 23, Westbrook is 23, Harden is 22. They are 3 suns rising at the same time. Their peak years will overlap significantly, which means the Thunder's championship window isn't just 1 or 2 years, but a dominant stretch of 5 to 7 years. But to open that window, there's only one prerequisite. All 3 of them must stay on the team. Now, let's get back to the model itself. The current roster is Durant, Westbrook, Harden, and Ibaka. Against any opponent, their win rate is over 60%. In 5 years, they would win at least 2 or 3 championships. This result is a dynasty. But if we trade Harden and get a decent scorer in return, the Thunder would still be a strong team, but no longer unstoppable. The tactical mismatch advantage that Harden creates would be gone, and the team's margin for error would be extremely low. Any injury to a core player could be devastating. In this scenario, the probability of winning a championship in 5 years might only be 20%, or even lower. At best, they might win a single championship, but there would be no chance of building a dynasty. Presti says nothing, but inside, he's in turmoil. Your analysis is almost identical to the scenario he's been running through in his mind. Your analysis is even deeper, and more data-driven than his own. Now let's do the math. Your gaze sharpens. On one side, you pay $15 million in luxury tax each year, in exchange for a 40% higher chance to build a Thunder dynasty that will go down in history. On the other side, you save that money, but let this once-in-a-century talented team become just another tragic story of what could have been. So Sam, what would you choose? This question hits Presti like a sledgehammer, striking hard at his heart. Then, a faint, bitter smile appears on his face. Wow, your analysis is brilliant, but also harsh, because everything you said is true. But you don't understand the difficulties faced by small market teams. Every penny has to be spent where it matters most. Mr. Bennett is a businessman. In his eyes, using a near-max contract player as a sixth man is the height of extravagance and waste. But is it really a waste? You immediately counter, Jordan had Pippen by his side, Shaq had Kobe. A dynasty always needs at least 2 MVP caliber players. Harden's sixth-man role is just a tactical disguise. His real purpose is to ensure that, for all 48 minutes, the Thunder always have 2 superstars on the court. This isn't extravagance. This is the lifeline to building a dynasty. Spending just over $10 million to secure this dynasty's lifeline, in my opinion, is the best deal in the entire league. Presti is completely stunned by your words. He's never heard this perspective before, yet it hits the nail on the head. He stares at you in a daze, feeling as if he's talking to a basketball prophet from the future. This young man's basketball IQ and business acumen are already far beyond his comprehension. Who exactly are you? Presti finally voices his biggest doubt. He can't believe that an ordinary intern could have such profound insight. You smile, knowing you've set the stage enough. It's time to show your true fangs. Instead of answering directly, you ask Sam in return. If someone were willing to pay all the luxury tax and provide you with all the resources needed to build a dynasty, all they ask of you is one thing, to use your talent to win them a championship. Would you be willing to work for someone like that? Presti's pupils dilate again. He's no fool. He instantly grasps the earth-shattering implication behind your words. His breathing grows rapid, and his hands subconsciously clench into fists. Seeing this, you lean forward slightly, lower your voice, but your tone is commanding, as if you rule the world. This team called the Thunder, their owner is about to change very soon, and I am looking for a general manager who can make history with me. Presti's mind goes completely blank in an instant. Your words echo in his ears like thunder out of a clear sky. The information is overwhelming, the impact too strong, and he loses the ability to think. But it's Clay Bennett. He won't sell the team. Presti instinctively protests. The Thunder are his life's work. There's no way he'd ever. In this ruthless world, nothing is impossible. Only a matter of price. And my team has already prepared an offer for Mr. Bennett that he simply can't refuse. Meanwhile, in the offices of Pinnacle Capital in New York, Liam and Sophia's team are making the final moves to close the net. Liam's legal team. The most efficient bloodhounds have turned over every stone in all of Bennett's companies. Sophia's finance team then converted this information into cold, hard numbers and charts. An encrypted report was sent to your inbox last night, and every word of that report is etched clearly in your mind. Looking at Presti, who still wears a look of disbelief, you speak slowly. Sam, let me tell you something you might not know. Mr. Bennett's main source of wealth comes from his family business, Dorchester Capital, an energy investment fund. But over the past 2 years, with the shale gas revolution, natural gas prices have continued to fall, dropping nearly 40% from their peak. Presti's expression changes slightly. He knew his boss was in the energy business, but wasn't familiar with the specifics. This means, you continue, that Dorchester Capital's core investment portfolio is facing huge paper losses and cash flow pressure. And when a shrewd businessman's main business runs into trouble and needs a large amount of cash to fill the gap, what does he do? Your gaze is intense. Presti's voice is full of suggestion, and his breathing starts to quicken. You mean luxury? Taxes? Presti blurts out. Exactly, you snap your fingers. For Bennett, the Thunder is the perfect asset. Its market value has soared thanks to your outstanding performance, and it's at a historic high. Selling it now would not only bring in a large sum of cash to save his core business, but also allow him to step away from the bottomless pit of luxury tax, with the shining image of having found a better new owner for the Thunder. He could even claim that this was a difficult decision made for the future of Goose City, getting the money, gaining a good reputation, and shedding a huge burden all at once. Sam, if you were Clay Bennett, would you turn down such a deal? Presti is left completely speechless. Your analysis, like a completed puzzle, perfectly explains Bennett's almost obsessive stinginess when it came to Harden's contract renewal. So it turns out the owner isn't just stingy, he's running out of money. He looks at you, his eyes filled with awe and fear. Not only do you understand basketball, it's as if you have the all-seeing eyes of God, able to see through everything. How do you know so much? Presti's voice is hoarse, because when my team decides to hunt down a target, we study everything about him. His habits, his weaknesses, every pore on his body. And now, Mr. Bennett's weakness is firmly in our grasp. I'm not afraid to tell you, the acquisition plan will officially launch next week. My lawyer will submit an offer he can't refuse. My PR team will start building momentum in the media, and my financial model will prove to the entire league that the Thunder's value is far greater than that number. After saying this, you look at the NBA's top general manager and slowly extend your hand. Sam Presti, let me say it again. My goal is to build a basketball dynasty, the likes of which has never been seen before, and will never be seen again. I offer unlimited funding, the most professional support staff, and absolute trust and authority. What I need from you is to use your wisdom to pick the soldiers and draw up the blueprint for me, now. Make your choice. Presti looks at your outstretched hand, torn between two worlds. On one side, the owner and team he has served for years. On the other, a mysterious future that could fulfill all his dreams. Suddenly, he remembers the tears Durant shed in the tunnel after the finals. He recalls the complex look in Harden's eyes at the negotiating table, longing yet disappointed by the offer. He also remembers countless nights arguing heatedly with Bennett over the phone for the sake of just a few $1 million. At last, all his hesitation, struggle, and frustration dissolve into a long sigh. He lifts his head, his gaze once again resolute. Slowly, he reaches out and grips your hand tightly. I have only one condition. After the acquisition is complete, I want to personally hand James Harden the max contract he deserves. Hearing this, you smile. A brilliant, radiant smile. The very next day, Presti flies back to Goose City. Outwardly, nothing has changed. He continues to handle the team's daily affairs as usual. But deep inside, something has fundamentally shifted. His perspective is no longer about saving money for the owner, but about cooperating with the new owner's acquisition to secure the team's future. He has become the most secretive piece planted deep within the enemy's heart. You, on the other hand, fly straight from Chicago back to New York, to Summit Capital. As you walk into the office, Liam, Sophia, and Amanda are already waiting for you. Then, Liam hands you a non-binding letter of intent for the acquisition. You open the folder to find a concise and powerful numbers page, an offer to acquire 100% ownership of the Oklahoma City Thunder for $550 million, with the payment method being all cash. At this moment, Sophia stands up to explain, and the screen behind her immediately displays a set of complex data charts. According to Forbes' valuation, the Thunder are worth $348 million. But their model is outdated and seriously underestimates the brand premium that comes with having a superstar trio. Our model removes the negative expectations of Harden possibly being traded, and instead factors in the positive outlook of keeping the three young stars together and starting a dynasty. With this, we have re-evaluated the team and concluded that its fair value lies between $450 and $480 million. Our offer of $550 million, therefore, represents a premium of over 15% above this fair value. For the acquisition of any non-major market team, this is a generous, almost irresistible price. More importantly, our payment method is all cash. If Bennett agrees, the money can be transferred to his account in a very short time, providing immediate support for his struggling energy business. Providing the most crucial lifeblood, this kind of temptation is fatal for a businessman in urgent need of cash flow. You nodded in satisfaction. Good. Nodding is good. Amanda, how about public opinion? Is everything proceeding as planned? The PR queen, Amanda, replied confidently, in all the major fan communities, whether the Thunder management is giving up a dynasty just to save money has become the hottest topic. Most fans are inclined to keep Harden at any cost. We have successfully put Bennett under public pressure. If he trades Harden, he'll be going against the entire city's fan base. Meanwhile, there's someone willing to pay a huge sum of cash, far above market value. All just to keep the core lineup together. Your image will stand in stark contrast to the stingy Bennett. The stars will side with us. It's a perfect collaboration, a seamless execution by the king of strangulation. Then you turn to Chief Legal Counsel Liam. When will this gift be delivered to Mr. Bennett's desk? Anytime. Liam's eyes sparkled with excitement. I've already contacted the top commercial law firm in Goose City. As soon as you give the word, they'll deliver the letter of intent in the most forceful way within an hour. Deliver it to Bennett himself then. Do it now. Meanwhile, in the top floor office of the Devon Energy Center in Oklahoma City, the atmosphere in Bennett's office was as heavy as the sky before a thunderstorm. He had just hung up on a fund manager, feeling agitated. Natural gas prices were still falling. The company's cash flow was flashing red, and he was even considering mortgaging part of the Thunder's shares to get a bank loan. Just then, his personal assistant knocked and entered, looking uneasy. Boss, there are a few lawyers downstairs. They say they represent Summit Capital. They said there are extremely urgent and important documents that must be handed to you personally. Bennett from Summit Capital frowned. He had never heard of this name before, and told them to just leave the documents. They insisted on delivering them to you in person, saying you would definitely be interested. Bennett impatiently waved his hand and told them to come up. A few minutes later, 3 lawyers in suits walked into the office. The lead lawyer placed a blue folder on Bennett's large mahogany desk. Good afternoon, Mr. Bennett. We are here on behalf of our client, Summit Capital, to formally present you with this non-binding letter of intent for acquisition. Bennett scoffed, picking up the folder with disdain. In his eyes, this was just another nobody trying to ride the Thunder's popularity for hype. However, when he opened the folder and saw that string of numbers starting with a 5 followed by 8 zeros, his smile instantly froze. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he must have seen it wrong. $550 million, all cash payment. A huge jolt of electricity shot from his tailbone straight to the top of his head. His heart pounded, blood rushed, and his mind spun with dizziness. As the owner, he knew the value of his team inside out. $400 million was the highest price he had ever considered. But now, someone had directly raised the price by $150 million, and in cash. At this moment, all thoughts of championships, of being a city hero, of the hard work poured into the team, every emotion wavered in the face of that cold $550 million figure. He thought of his company's precarious financial statements, the bank manager's stern face urging repayment, and the looming bottomless pit of luxury tax. A devilish voice screamed in his mind, "Sell it! Sell it!" Immediately, the very next day, after Bennett received that astronomical offer, a phone call from Houston, Texas, was made to James Harden's agent, Rob Pelinka. In 2012, Pelinka, who would later become the renowned general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers, was still one of the top player agents in the basketball world. He was sharp, capable, and always put his clients' interests first. On the other end of the line came a voice that was shrewd and composed. His speech was unhurried, but every word exuded an undeniable confidence. "Rob, this is Daryl Morey, general manager of the Houston Rockets. Daryl, the man who regarded data analytics and the theory of Morey ball as gospel. Daryl, my friend, what can I do for you?" Pelinka replied warmly, though he was already on guard. He knew that someone as calculating as Morey would never call without a reason. "Of course, Rob, I'm calling about your client. And for our shared future as well." There was a hint of a smile in Morey's voice. "I want to talk about James Harden." Pelinka sneered inwardly, but remained polite on the surface. "Oh, about James. He's doing great. The new owner of the Thunder really appreciates him, and has given him a max contract. He's about to start a great career in Oklahoma." He deliberately emphasized the words "new owner" and "max contract," trying to make Morey back off. However, Morey seemed completely oblivious to the underlying message and continued on his own. "Yes, I saw the 5-year, $80 million contract. Very impressive. But the problem is, he's getting a max contract, yet he's still playing as the sixth man, isn't he?" This sentence was like a needle, precisely targeting the spot that Pelinka and Harden cared about most. The Thunder's tactics require it. James is all about the team. Pelinka replied with official rhetoric, saying, "It's for the good of the team." Of course, Morey laughed. But in the Thunder, the spotlight always belongs to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. James is paid as much as they are. But in terms of tactical status, ball possession, and prestige, he will always be third. "Rob, you're a top agent. Do you really think this is the best choice for maximizing the interest of a superstar scorer in the prime of his career?" Pelinka fell silent, because what Morey said was true. He had, of course, secured financial satisfaction for Harden. But in an athlete's career, money isn't everything. Status, honor, and building a personal brand are just as crucial. With the Thunder, at best, he could only ever be a great second or third option. Morey's voice was filled with a devilish allure. In Houston, he would be the one and only king. The entire city and the whole team would be built around him. He would have unlimited shooting rights. He could play his favorite ball-dominant style, and he could boost his stats to an MVP level. Just imagine, when Rob's average stats go from 16 points to 26 or even 30 points per game, what kind of explosive growth will his commercial value and his sneaker contract see? Morey paused, then delivered the most lethal blow. Oklahoma is just a small city, but Houston is the fourth largest city in the United States, with a huge market and abundant media resources. Only here could he truly become a global superstar. The Thunder's new owner may be rich, but can he give James an entire city? Pelinka couldn't help but feel his resolve waver. As an agent, his duty is to maximize his client's interests. The blueprint Morey painted was far more enticing than staying with the Thunder, both in terms of personal development and commercial prospects. "Daryl, what are you really trying to say?" Pelinka asked, though he already knew the answer. "What I want to say is very simple." Morey finally laid his cards on the table. "Although Harden has already renewed his contract, in the NBA, nothing is untradeable. As long as the player himself wants to come, and as long as we can offer the Thunder a package they can't refuse, anything is possible." That new Chinese owner might be generous, but does he understand basketball? Does he understand the NBA business? He's just a young guy who made some money by luck. But Rob, it's us who truly understand the rules of the game in this league. Morey spoke with confidence. Go talk to James. Tell him the throne in Houston is waiting for him. As long as he nods, leave the rest to me." After hanging up the phone, Pelinka fell into deep thought. He looked out the window at the bright sunshine, but what he felt was a new storm was brewing. That very afternoon, he relayed Morey's words to James Harden, who was training in Los Angeles without missing a single detail. The team's undisputed leader, King Harden, stopped dribbling. Sweat dripped from his signature beard onto the floor. His expression grew complicated. To say he wasn't tempted would be a lie. What top-tier player doesn't want to be the absolute core of a team? The one whose word is law, the one with unlimited shooting rights. With the Thunder, even though he was happy, although he was brothers with Durant and Westbrook, he also knew that as long as those two were there, he would always be the third wheel, trailing behind them. When the team was struggling, he could come on and take over the game, but when the team stepped into the spotlight, it was always Durant and Westbrook who lifted the trophy. That young Chinese owner, Hua Feng, was indeed very good to him, giving him both money and respect. But just as Morey said, did he really understand basketball? Could his blueprint for a dynasty really come true? Or was it just the pipe dream of a rich man? For the first time, Harden felt a flicker of doubt about his choice. What he didn't know was that this secret conversation between the player and his agent would soon reach the office of New York Dingfeng Capital through an unexpected channel. Hua Feng was reading an intelligence briefing submitted by Amanda Reed. Amanda's team included not only PR experts, but also a group of retired FBI and CIA agents. This business intelligence investigation team had their tentacles spread throughout every corner of the league, from team executives to trainers close to the players, and even waiters who frequented nightclubs. Any of them could be a target source for their information gathering. James Harden had a private meeting with his agent Rob Pelinka at 3 p.m. today, which lasted 45 minutes. The core topic of the meeting was related to Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey, according to analysis from our informants. After the meeting, Harden showed clear emotional fluctuations during training. Hua Feng looked at the report, a faint sneer appearing at the corner of his mouth. So Daryl Morey, that calculating fat man, finally made his move. He muttered to himself. The inertia of history always tries to pull a derailed train back onto its original track. "Sir, do we need to take countermeasures?" a man asked. "We could leak news to the media about the Rockets' illegal recruitment and cause them some trouble." "No, that's not necessary." Hua Feng waved his hand, a playful glint flashing in his eyes. "A fly only lands on a cracked egg. The reason Morey dares to make a move is because there's still a trace of uncertainty in Harden's heart. What we need to do is not to swat that ordinary fly. Instead, we need to completely seal up that crack in the egg." Hua Feng pondered for a moment, then gave an order that surprised everyone. "Amanda, help me make some arrangements. I need to take a trip to Los Angeles. Sophia, immediately purchase a top-tier nightclub in Los Angeles in my name. It has to be the biggest, most luxurious, and most private kind. I want to have full ownership within 48 hours. Liam, you stay in New York and keep pressuring Bennett. Tell him my patience is limited, and the offer is only valid for a short time." The three head wolves immediately accepted their orders and sprang into efficient action. Hua Feng stood up, walked to the window, and looked down at the steel jungle beneath his feet. He said softly, "It seems that just giving you money and blueprints isn't enough. I also need to let you see with your own eyes what kind of life you can really have by following me." What he wanted was not just Harden's loyalty, he wanted something more. He wanted Harden to feel, from the depths of his soul, a complete disdain for that so-called Houston throne. Under the night sky, Los Angeles looked like a black velvet chessboard, scattered with diamonds, with the lights of Beverly Hills shining as the brightest jewels on the board. In the heart of Hollywood's Sunset Boulevard stood a top-tier private club called the Muse. This club was renowned for its lavish decor, strict membership system, and unparalleled privacy. It is said that its membership roster includes half of Hollywood's A-list celebrities, a significant portion of the music industry, as well as hidden giants from Silicon Valley and Wall Street. Here, you might see a newly crowned Oscar-winning actor and a pop diva chatting and laughing at the bar, or tech moguls and media tycoons finalizing billion-dollar deals in a quiet corner. This is the pinnacle where power and desire intertwine in Los Angeles. And in the past 48 hours, this club has quietly changed hands. Sophia Chen's team, with overwhelming force, made an offer in cash that Mr. Yuan simply could not refuse. They completed the full acquisition of Muse when James Harden's agent, Rob Pelinka, received a private invitation from the new owner of the Muse Club. He was completely stunned. The invitation was exquisitely crafted with gold embossed lettering that read, "Mr. Hua Feng cordially invites you and Mr. James Harden to Liu Xi at 9 p.m. tonight to enjoy an evening among friends." An evening among friends. Pelinka looked at the invitation, then glanced at his phone, where he had just received news that the Muse Club had been swiftly acquired by a mysterious tycoon from the East. He felt his heart twitching. Just to meet with Harden, someone had directly bought the most exclusive nightclub in all of Los Angeles. How extravagant, how utterly unbelievable this move was. Pelinka had no doubt that this act was itself a declaration, a direct, almost contemptuous response to Daryl Morey's promise of giving you a city. Houston could offer you a city, but I, Huafeng, can give you the most luxurious den of pleasure in the world's most prosperous city. At exactly 9 o'clock in the evening, when Harden and Pelinka's chauffeured car arrived at Muse. When they arrived at the club, Harden was stunned by the scene before him. There were none of the usual long lines of luxury cars, or the parade of glamorous celebrities at the entrance. The entire club was brightly lit, yet eerily quiet. 2 rows of burly men in black suits and earpieces stood at the door, their expressions stern, like elite guards protecting a fortress. A white-haired manager, exuding elegance in a bespoke tailcoat, quickly stepped forward to open the car door for them. "Good evening, Mr. Harden, Mr. Pelinka. Mr. Hua has been waiting for you for quite some time." He made a gesture and said, "Tonight, the entire Muse is open exclusively for you 2 distinguished guests. Just for the 2 of you." Harden felt his throat go a little dry. He had been to countless nightclubs and enjoyed VIP treatment more times than he could count, but having the most prestigious club in America cleared out just to host him. This was something he had never even dared to dream of. As they entered the club, a wave of luxury hit them. Velvet walls, crystal chandeliers, and rare works of art displayed along both sides of the corridor. Yet none of this compared to the impact of the figure standing in the center of the main hall. Huafeng was casually seated on a massive circular sofa, dressed in a relaxed Versace silk outfit, with a Patek Philippe watch on his left wrist, gleaming under the lights. There was no one else beside him, just a table holding several bottles of the world's finest champagne, Armand de Brignac, also known as Ace of Spades. Behind him stood a huge floor-to-ceiling glass wall, and beyond it was the club's most renowned feature, a temperature-controlled infinity pool, where dozens of stunning bikini models with perfect figures lounged in the water. They were laughing and playing like mermaids. Each of them had the looks and figures worthy of a Sports Illustrated cover. The scene was decadent and extravagant, filled with an overwhelming sense of luxury. "James, Rob, come over and sit," Huafeng called out to them with a warm smile, like a host welcoming old friends. Harden and Pelinka walked over mechanically and sat down on the sofa. Harden's eyes instinctively drifted toward the models in the pool, his gaze full of youthful longing. An instinctive desire for beauty. "Do you like it?" Huafeng noticed his gaze and asked with a smile. Harden scratched his big beard a bit awkwardly. Huafeng snapped his fingers, and the DJ by the pool immediately switched to a song with a strong beat. The models all stepped out of the pool, gracefully making their way into the main hall. Each of them held a glass of champagne and proactively sat down beside Harden and Pelinka. Fragrant breezes wafted through the air, and laughter filled the room. "Tonight, they're all here as your friends to party with you," Huafeng said casually, then personally poured Harden a glass of Ace of Spades. "Make yourself at home. No need to be polite." Holding his glass, Harden felt like he was on cloud 9. Everything before his eyes had already surpassed his understanding of the word luxury. Is this really the life of that young boss? "Mr. Hua, you're being far too generous." Pelinka finally managed to get back into business mode. "Relax, Rob." Huafeng leaned back on the sofa, exuding confidence. "I don't like to hold back. If money can't make you and your friends happy, then it's nothing more than a string of meaningless numbers." He turned to look at Harden, who at that moment was sandwiched between 2 blonde, blue-eyed models, looking a bit at a loss. "James," Huafeng's voice wasn't loud, but it reached Harden's ears clearly. "I heard someone in Houston painted a beautiful portrait of you." Harden's body suddenly stiffened. Huafeng's smile remained gentle, but his gaze grew sharp. "They told you they could give you a city, let you be the king there, right?" Harden didn't answer, but his silence was already an admission. It sounded tempting. Huafeng nodded, then suddenly changed his tone, a hint of disdain in his voice. "But James, have you ever thought about what kind of throne they're actually promising you? It's in a second-tier city, surrounded by a bunch of role players, struggling year after year in the playoffs, giving it your all. Is it just so you can touch the floor of the conference finals? Is it so you can carry the team all by yourself, treating your body like a consumable, playing 40 minutes a game just to rack up those impressive-looking regular season stats that ultimately can't get you a ring? That kind of king is only a king on paper, the leader of the empty stats club. It sounds glamorous, but in reality, it's just a lonely, unsuccessful loser who can't win games." Every word Huafeng said was like an awl, stabbing hard into Harden's heart. He stood up, walked over to Harden, and handed him a fresh glass of champagne, while Huafeng's voice grew low and full of persuasion. "I won't promise you a city, because that's too small. James, what I want to give you is a true dynasty. A dynasty that will put your name alongside legends like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Bill Russell. In our dynasty, you won't have to carry the team alone. You'll have Kevin, the greatest scorer of this era, and Russell, the most explosive guard on the planet. You are brothers. You are an invincible army, 3 in 1. I won't let you be a lonely king. I want you to stand at the very top of the world with your brothers, wearing that championship ring encrusted with diamonds. At that moment, you won't need anyone to give you a city, because the entire basketball world will be at your feet. He looked at Harden, whose eyes were already beginning to shine, leaned in close to his ear, and delivered the final blow in a voice only the two of them could hear. As for life, James, look around you. He gestured at everything around them. Business like tonight. If you stay with the Thunder, if we win the championship, will become your everyday life. Los Angeles, New York, Las Vegas, the world's most elite playgrounds will all be yours, while those so-called kings are still fighting tooth and nail just for a ticket to the succession. Now tell me, which one do you want? Harden looked into Hua Feng's eyes that seemed to see through everything. He glanced at the scene of ultimate luxury and indulgence before him, then recalled the angry blueprint Mori had promised him over the phone. The difference between the two was like night and day. He picked up his glass and downed the champagne in one gulp, as if venting, or perhaps as if making up his mind about something. He raised his head, and the last trace of hesitation and wavering in his eyes had completely vanished, replaced by an unprecedented determination. Boss, he looked at Hua Feng and called him that for the first time. I know what I need to do. The next day, Harden did something. He took the initiative to return a call to Daryl Morey. The content of the call was very simple. Daryl, thank you for valuing me. Harden's tone was calm and polite, but I think I still prefer the air in Oklahoma. I wish you all the best in Houston. After saying this, he hung up before Morey could say anything else. On the other end of the line, Morey held the receiver in a daze for a long time. He couldn't understand it. Just 2 days had passed. What could have caused such a 180-degree change in Harden's attitude? All the carefully prepared arguments about the team's blueprint, market value, and personal development hadn't even had a chance to be presented before they were shut down by a single, offhand remark from the other side that he simply preferred the air in Oklahoma. Morey couldn't figure it out, but he knew that the pursuit of Harden had failed. Meanwhile, after finishing this business in Los Angeles, Harden felt completely at ease, as if a weight had been lifted. He felt he had made an absolutely right decision. The world that Hua Feng showed him made him realize one thing. The so-called status of being the team leader seemed utterly insignificant in the face of a true dynasty and the ultimate enjoyment of life. He immediately contacted Durant and Westbrook, KD and Russ to come to Los Angeles, where the boss would treat them. 2 days later, in a top-tier beachfront villa with a private beach on Malibu Beach in Los Angeles, Hua Feng met with the 3 core players of the Thunder. This villa, also at the Pinnacle, had just been rented by Hua Feng with the help of capital. Huge floor-to-ceiling windows faced the endless Pacific Ocean. The sea breeze was gentle, and the sunlight was just right. It was the first time Durant and Westbrook had met this legendary new boss outside of the basketball court. Durant appeared a bit reserved and curious, sizing up Hua Feng, who looked even younger than himself. He simply couldn't connect this man with the mysterious tycoon who had stirred up a storm on Wall Street and spent lavishly to buy a nightclub. Westbrook, on the other hand, still wore his usual defiant expression. With his hands in his pockets, his gaze was scrutinizing, carrying a hint of barely noticeable provocation. He wanted to see what kind of magic this guy, who could make Harden stay so willingly, really had. Kevin, Russell, welcome Hua Feng. He didn't put on any airs of being the boss. Instead, he stepped forward like an ordinary friend, giving each of them a fist bump and saying, "Relax." Just like James said, today it's my treat. On the villa's terrace, top-quality barbecue and chilled beer had already been prepared. There were no beautiful models, no lavish parties, just 4 men of similar age. Hua Feng knew very well that when it came to Harden, he could use illusions built on money and desire to sway him, but that approach wouldn't work on Durant or Westbrook. At his core, Durant is a sensitive, pure basketball fanatic who craves recognition. You need to talk to him about basketball and ideals, make him feel understood and supported. Westbrook, on the other hand, is a loyal, yet proud beast. You need to tell him directly and sincerely that you need his strength and give him enough respect and trust. Let's do it. Let's talk while we eat. Hua Feng personally opened beers for them. At first, the atmosphere was a bit quiet. Durant and Westbrook were both observing Hua Feng, unsure of what he was up to. Hua Feng was the first to break the ice. He looked at Durant. "Kevin," he began, "I watched every minute of your finals games last season. Do you know what my biggest takeaway was?" Durant looked up. "What is it?" he asked, his tone serious, sensing Hua Feng's sincerity. "I saw you score 36 points in Game 1, but in the following games, you were trapped in the Heat's relentless defensive rotations. I saw you repeatedly go one-on-one, fighting through double teams, playing so hard and with so much effort. At the time I wondered if James Harden could have shared more of your burden. If our tactics had been more diverse, would the outcome have been completely different?" These words instantly touched the softest part of Durant's heart. What he cared about most was never the failure itself, but that feeling of being isolated and helpless, giving everything he had, and still being powerless. Huafeng's words made him feel that all his efforts and struggles had been seen and understood. Then, what do you think we should do? Durant asked instinctively, already slipping into his basketball-obsessed discussion mode. Play smarter, not just harder, Huafeng said. You have a historic-level shooting talent, Russell has the ability to break through any defense, and James combines shooting and playmaking. The three of you shouldn't just take turns going one-on-one. We need more off-ball movement, more pick-and-roll plays, and even develop some small-ball tactics unique to us. He looked at Russell Westbrook. Everyone says you play impulsively and take unreasonable shots, but in my eyes, that's not impulsiveness. It's passion. It's the flame that can ignite the team's fighting spirit when we're stuck in a rut. I will never try to extinguish your fire. I will only make it burn brighter and more effectively. I need your drives to draw the defense, and then kick the ball out to Kevin and James when they're open. Every time you attack, it's the starting point of our offense. Westbrook was stunned. He'd heard too many coaches and commentators tell him to calm down, to play tougher, but Huafeng was the first. He was the first person to openly and unequivocally affirm the value of Westbrook's passion. This gave Westbrook's proud heart an unprecedented sense of comfort. Finally, Huafeng's gaze swept over the three of them. I know there are a lot of rumors out there about you, he said. That there's not enough ball to go around, that three tigers can't share one mountain, that sooner or later you'll go your separate ways because of money and status. But all of that is... Huafeng's tone grew firm. They have no idea what brotherhood really means. He stood up, walked to the balcony railing, and, with his back to the three of them, gazed out at the sea. Brotherhood isn't about eating, drinking, and having fun together. Brotherhood is about being on the battlefield, where you can entrust your back to each other without reservation. Brotherhood means when one person falls, the other two will help him up, and then take out all the enemies for him. The three of you are the most talented trio of brothers I've ever seen in this world. You were meant to win all the honors together. He turned around, his eyes burning, as he looked at them. That's why I bought this team, and that's why I kept James. I came here to say all this to you because I don't want to see your talent wasted, and I don't want to see your brotherhood torn apart by those pointless rumors. My goal is simple, just three words: brotherhood, championship, and dynasty. I will provide everything needed to build a dynasty. All the money, resources, and the top-tier team. I will shield you from all the outside noise and pressure. And you, Huafeng, hold up three fingers. There are three of you, and you only need to do one thing. Trust each other like real brothers on the court, and then bring me back that damn championship trophy. Sunshine, waves, breeze, Durant, Westbrook, Harden. The three of them fell silent. They looked at Huafeng, their eyes filled with complex emotions, shock, being moved, and a surge of passion. They had never imagined that an owner would communicate with them in this way. He didn't talk about business, didn't talk about contracts, he talked about brotherhood, championships, and ideals. He didn't seem like a businessman, but rather, the most passionate comrade who shared the same dreams as they did. Yes, brotherhood, championship, dynasty. Wasn't this everything they had dreamed of since the very first day they entered the league? Harden was the first to stand up. He walked over to Huafeng and gave his shoulder a firm pat. Westbrook also stood up. He didn't say anything. He just picked up a bottle of beer and clinked it heavily against Huafeng's. Finally, Durant stood up as well. He looked at Huafeng, then at Westbrook and Harden beside him, and a genuine, heartfelt smile appeared on his face, one he hadn't shown in a long time. "Boss," he said, "I can't wait to start the new season." In that moment, in the Malibu sea breeze, Huafeng had bound the hearts of the Thunder's big three together in the most sincere and powerful way. They were no longer three separate superstars. They had become a united trinity, ready to rule the league. The meeting on Malibu Beach had an immediate effect. Durant, Westbrook, and Harden were almost inseparable for the rest of the offseason. They trained together at the UCLA gym, hung out together on the streets of Los Angeles, and even did a joint interview with ESPN. During the interview, when the reporter asked a pointed question about ball distribution and who was the leader, Harden did something out of character. He grabbed the microphone, smiled, and said, "Our team has only one leader, and that's Mr. Hua. The three of us are his generals, and a general's job isn't to show off, it's to win the war." This answer was broadcast across the United States, instantly shattering all the rumors about internal strife within the Thunder. Fans and commentators were stunned. They had never seen the core players of a team act like this. Being able to present such a harmonious and unified front to the outside world, people began to believe that this mysterious new owner from the East truly possessed a kind of magical power, transforming these three exceptionally talented tigers into a disciplined and united army. Huafeng simply watched all of this unfold, with a smile from New York, observing quietly through television and the internet. He knew that the ideological work was done, and the internal fortress was now unbreakably strong. Now it was time to address the most immediate external problem and fulfill his promise to Presti. He once again turned his attention to James Harden's contract issue. Although Hua Feng had verbally promised Harden a max contract, and Bennett had been forced to sign a preliminary agreement at the new owner's behest, that agreement carried significant legal risks and uncertainties before the official transfer of team ownership was completed. This was especially true after Clay Bennett fell into a long silence upon receiving Hua Feng's astronomical $550 million offer. He neither rejected nor agreed immediately. Instead, like a cunning old fox, he began to play a delaying game. On one hand, he had his legal team engage in marathon negotiations with Summit Capital, while on the other, he secretly reached out to other potential buyers, trying to drive up the price. This period of uncertainty provided an opening for opportunists like Daryl Morey. Hua Feng would not allow such uncertainty to persist, so he called Presti. At this point, Presti was already fully on Hua Feng's side. Is Sam Bennett still stalling? Yes, Mr. Hua. He's using this time to spread the word that someone wants to buy the Thunder, hoping to attract other bidders. There was a hint of disdain in Presti's voice. As expected, Hua Feng sneered. Ignore him. He won't be able to keep this up for long. Now, I want you to do something that will completely disrupt his rhythm and put our minds at ease once and for all. Please, give your instructions. As general manager, I want you to officially notify James Harden and his agent, Rob Pelinka, to fly to Oklahoma City tomorrow. We're going to offer him a brand new contract that he simply can't refuse, and that will be legally binding immediately, Hua Feng said. At the same time, I'll have Amanda arrange for several of the largest local media outlets to accidentally be present at the signing. Presti hesitated for a moment. But Mr. Hua, the ownership of the team isn't in your name yet. If we sign a supermax contract with the Thunder now, what if, just in case, Bennett changes his mind at the last minute, or another buyer swoops in? Then this contract would become a huge salary burden that Bennett or any new buyer would have to take on. It would plunge them straight into the luxury tax quagmire. It's essentially mortgaging the team's future salary cap in advance. It's a risky move, but he won't back out, Hua Feng said, his tone full of absolute confidence. And that's exactly what I want. This contract is our final ultimatum to force his hand. He either accepts my acquisition and lets me pay this salary, or he'll have to grit his teeth and swallow the very thing he fears most himself. He can't refuse the contract and then watch himself get crushed by the luxury tax. This is a single-choice question, Sam. He has no other option. Presti instantly understood how brilliant Hua Feng's strategy was. Truly brilliant. This move forced Bennett right to the edge of the cliff. On the surface, it was just signing a player contract, but in reality, it used Harden's future as a weapon to deliver Bennett the most fatal blow. I understand, sir. I'll make arrangements right away, Presti replied, his voice full of excitement at being able to personally carry out such a plan that strikes at the root of the problem. It made his blood surge with excitement. The next day, in the VIP conference room of the Chesapeake Energy Arena in Oklahoma City, Harden and his agent Pelinka sat at the conference table, looking a bit confused. Across from them sat Presti, his expression serious. What surprised them even more was that several cameras were set up in the corner of the room, and a few of the city's most senior sports journalists were quietly waiting there. What kind of setup was this? It didn't look like a contract signing, more like a press conference. Just then, the conference room door was pushed open, and Hua Feng walked in, surrounded by a group of bodyguards dressed in black. He was dressed very formally today, in a well-fitted dark grey suit, exuding a powerful presence, like a king making his entrance. He didn't take the main seat, but instead walked over to stand beside Presti, smiling and nodding at Harden and Pelinka. James, Rob, thank you for coming, Mr. Hua. Pelinka was a bit puzzled, but Hua Feng didn't offer any explanation. Instead, he gave Presti a signal. Presti understood, stood up, and placed a thick contract document, already prepared, in the center of the table, pushing it toward Harden. James, Presti began, his voice loud and powerful, making sure every microphone in the room could record him clearly. On behalf of the Oklahoma City Thunder, it is my honor to formally offer you a 5-year maximum contract extension. The total value of this contract will reach the highest limit allowed by the league, and it includes a 15% trade kicker. We believe you are the indispensable core of this team, the most important piece of this dynasty's puzzle. We hope that you will spend your entire prime wearing the Thunder jersey, bringing honor to this city, together with your brothers. His words were flawless, passionate, and stirring. The reporters in the corner had already started excitedly snapping photos. Pelinka quickly picked up the contract and began to flip through it. As a top agent, he only needed a few glances before he drew in a sharp breath. The terms of this contract were as generous as they could possibly be. Not only was it a max contract, but it also included every possible incentive clause, and the trade kicker was set at the highest limit. This was no longer just a simple max contract. It was practically a lifelong declaration, written with the words, "We love you and we are willing to give you everything." This was even better than the terms of the preliminary agreement. Harden came over to take a look as well. Although he couldn't really understand the complex legal language, he could see the total amount, and that number represented the highest level of recognition from the team. It was only then that James Harden spoke. His voice was gentle, yet full of strength. "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. I promised you that you would get everything you deserve, and now I'm here to fulfill that promise." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the reporters, and said word by word, "I don't care who the team's owner is right now. Who will it be in the future? All I know is that from the moment this contract takes effect, you are a member of our Thunder team, and no one can take away your salary or luxury tax benefits. If the team can't afford it." He smiled, his expression radiating unparalleled confidence. "I'll pay it myself." This statement drove the reporters at the scene completely wild. Personally paying a player's salary and luxury tax. This is something unheard of in NBA history. This young tycoon was practically using an unreasonable method to declare to the world his determination regarding Harden. Pelinka knew he couldn't hesitate any longer. This contract, this favor, this determination had already surpassed any business considerations. He looked at Harden, and Harden was looking right back at him. His eyes were filled with excitement and gratitude. Harden nodded vigorously and said, "Let's do it, let's do it." He picked up the pen and signed his name on the contract that would change the course of his life. The moment he put the pen down, the conference room was lit up by camera flashes, turning it as bright as day. Presti was the first to stand up and gave Harden a strong hug, welcoming him home. James Harden's eyes grew a little red. From this day on, all the rumors and all the uncertainties were over. James Harden would become one of the core players of the Thunder dynasty and begin his great career. He was truly secured. And just half an hour after this scene, photos and videos from the signing site spread across the entire internet like wildfire, reaching even those far away in their offices. Clay Bennett, who had tried to use stalling tactics to drive up the price, was so furious when he saw the news that he threw his cigar to the ground with force. He knew he had lost. Hwafeng didn't play by the usual rules at all. With an almost suicidal max contract, he completely cut off any possibility of other buyers stepping in, and also left Bennett with no room to back out. Now, only two paths lay before him: either swallow this poison pill himself and wait to be crushed by the luxury tax, or sign immediately, take that $550 million lifeline, and exit with dignity. He picked up the phone, and in a tone of exhaustion he had never used before, said to his lawyer, "Tell the people at Dingfeng Capital that I agree. Arrange the signing." At the Olympic Tower in New York, the headquarters of the National Basketball Association, NBA, on the entire 17th floor of the building, in an office that was simply decorated yet exuded authority, sat a man who, though nearly 70 years old, but his gaze was still as sharp as ever. David Joel Stern, who had been in charge since 1984, had led this commercial sports league for nearly 30 years. He had single-handedly transformed a scandal-ridden, nearly bankrupt league into today's global sports empire worth tens of billions of dollars. He had witnessed the black and white rivalry between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, seen Michael Jordan's rise to legend, and personally propelled chosen ones like LeBron James onto the world stage. He was the godfather of the NBA, the undisputed and absolute dictator of this league. Anyone who wanted to play the game in this league had to get his approval first. At this moment, there was an application for the ownership change of the Oklahoma City Thunder lying on his desk. He had already read through the report. His face betrayed no emotion, but his fingers tapped lightly on the desk, revealing that he was not as calm inside as he appeared on the surface. A 20-year-old Chinese kid, using a massive fortune from a rather novel source, wanted to become one of the 30 NBA owners. The whole matter was full of uncertainties and points worth scrutinizing. Stern had many concerns. First, the source of the money. Although Summit Capital had submitted an impeccable verification report and tax plan from Goldman Sachs to prove the legitimacy of the funds, Stern knew very well that the money originally came from someone named Bitcoin, a virtual world he couldn't fully comprehend. He had to make sure there was no illegal money laundering or politically risky funds involved behind all this. Second, the buyer's motivation. This young man named Hwafeng, did he buy the team on a whim, or does he have a long-term business plan? Will he be like Mark Cuban, becoming a great owner who passionately invests in basketball, or will he be like former Clippers owner Donald Sterling, treating the team merely as a money-making tool and ultimately bringing endless trouble to the league? Third, and most importantly, what does this mean for the future of the entire league? Allowing someone so young and a non-American of Chinese descent to become a team owner. This is unprecedented in NBA history. What kinds of opportunities and challenges will this bring to the league? Could he just be a frontman pushed forward by some Eastern financial consortium? The door to Stern's office was knocked, and his secretary walked in. "Sir, Mr. Hua from Summit Capital is here." Let him in, Stern said calmly. He leaned back in his large chair, fingers interlaced in front of him, assuming the classic intimidating posture often used in negotiations. He wanted to meet this mysterious young man in person, to scrutinize this new player trying to enter his club with the sharp eyes he had honed over decades of experience. Hua Feng walked into the office alone. No lawyer, no advisor accompanied him. He didn't even bring a bodyguard. Dressed in a well-tailored suit, he wore a calm and humble smile, looking just like an outstanding student visiting a respected mentor. Good afternoon, Mr. Stern. It's a great honor to meet you. I'm Hua Feng. He took the initiative to extend his hand. Stern shook it perfunctorily, then gestured to the chair opposite. Have a seat, Mr. Hua. You should know why I asked you here today, don't you? Of course, Hua Feng replied calmly, as he sat down, his posture upright. It's about the Thunder team. I'm here to answer all the questions you have. Very well, then I'll get straight to the point. Stern's gaze sharpened. The money you used for the acquisition, over $500 million, its original source was something called Bitcoin, correct? Yes, sir, Hua Feng admitted calmly. I'm not interested in that thing. I just want to know one thing. Stern's voice was like that of a judge passing sentence. Can you guarantee to me, and to the other 29 owners on the league council, that every cent of this money is absolutely clean and can withstand the strictest scrutiny in the world? Hua Feng smiled slightly, full of confidence, and replied, as for that, I believe Goldman Sachs has already provided you with the most detailed report. All my transactions were conducted on compliant platforms within the United States. All my profits have already been, or will soon be, taxed at the highest federal and state rates according to US law. The taxes I pay may even exceed the total annual revenue of some teams in the league. I believe the IRS would be even happier than I am to prove the legitimacy of this money to you. He skillfully passed the ball to the IRS. This answer left Stern unable to refute someone who was willing to voluntarily pay astronomical taxes. The legitimacy of his funds was almost beyond question. Very well, Stern nodded. The first question was considered passed. He immediately threw out a second, even sharper question. What is your purpose in buying the team? For a 20-year-old who suddenly comes into a huge fortune, the usual choices are to buy mansions, yachts, and private jets, and to indulge in pleasure. Why would you want to buy an NBA team located in a small city like Oklahoma? Don't tell me it's because of passion. Mr. Hua, in my office, passion is the cheapest word. Of course, I love basketball, otherwise I wouldn't have chosen the Thunder. Hua Feng's tone remained humble, but the content of his words began to reveal a sharp edge. But what drives me to sit here is not just passion, but also business. Oh, let's hear it. Stern leaned forward slightly, sensing something unusual in the air. Hua Feng's gaze shifted to the large world map hanging on the wall. Mr. Stern, you are the greatest driving force behind the globalization of the NBA. You spent nearly 30 years promoting the NBA brand around the world. But in my view, in this grandest game of chess you've played, there remains one last and most important territory that has yet to be truly conquered, and that is China. Hua Feng enunciated each word clearly. Stern's brows furrowed. The NBA has already been very successful in China. Ever since Yao Ming, China has become the NBA's largest overseas market. Sensing Stern's doubt, Hua Feng continued. Yes, Yao Ming opened the door to China for the NBA, but that door, it only opened a crack. Chinese fans came to know the NBA through Yao Ming as an individual. They loved the Rockets because Yao Ming was on the Rockets. But after Yao retired, that love had nowhere to go. What the Chinese market needs is not a passing figure, but a home team that can continuously foster an emotional connection, a totem they can passionately follow. Just like people in Los Angeles love the Lakers, or people in Boston love the Celtics. My voice was full of conviction. And my Thunder will become the strongest bridge connecting the NBA and the entire Greater China region. My Chinese face will allow me to gain the recognition of Chinese fans and the market in the most natural way. I will promote deep cooperation between the Thunder and cities in China. I will move our preseason games to Beijing and Shanghai. I will sign young players from China, even if it's just to develop them in our G League team. I will leverage my family's connections in the Chinese business world to secure the largest sponsorship deals for the NBA and the Thunder. I will make the Thunder's games achieve higher viewership in China than any other team, even surpassing the Spring Festival Gala. Hua Feng stood up, walked over to the world map, and pointed to that vast land in the east. Mr. Stern, Yao Ming brought you tens of millions of fans. And I will bring you hundreds of millions of core users with strong purchasing power. I will turn the Thunder into the Real Madrid of the NBA in the East. That is my business plan. Do you think this plan is sincere enough? Stern was completely stunned. He stared intently at Hua Feng, his eyes filled with shock, admiration, and even a hint of excitement. He had originally thought Hua Feng would talk to him about things like team building or community contributions, those same old cliches. He never expected that this young man's ambitions were not limited to little Oklahoma or even to the United States. His vision encompassed the entire world. The blueprint he painted perfectly answered Stern's greatest confusion in the post-Yao Ming era. This was not just an acquisition plan. It was a grand vision that could elevate the NBA's globalization strategy to an entirely new peak. How could this be a 20-year-old? This was clearly a master strategist deeply versed in the ways of global business. Stern leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. In that moment, all his doubts vanished into thin air. He looked at Hua Feng, a man even younger than his own grandson, and for the first time, genuine admiration appeared in his eyes. His way of addressing him also changed from the formal Mr. Hua to a much warmer tone. "You are the most remarkable young man I have ever met." He stood up, walked over to Hua Feng, and patted him on the shoulder. "In principle, I agree to your acquisition proposal," he said, "but I need you to repeat what you just said to the other 29 owners at next week's league board meeting." He paused, a sly smile appearing on his face. "But I believe that when they hear about the enormous pie you've described, no one will vote against it." Hua Feng knew he had already won over the tough NBA president. He reached out and shook Stern's hand again. "Thank you, Mr. President. We won't let you down." This time, Stern's handshake was firm and sincere. The so-called conquest was not just about winning over David Stern himself, but, through him, conquering the entire NBA power core he represented, the Board of Governors. A week later, the NBA Board of Governors quarterly meeting was held at the St. Regis Hotel in New York. Owners or their representatives from all 30 teams gathered together. This was an elite circle beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The Buss family of the Lakers, Grousbeck of the Celtics, Dolan of the Knicks, and Cuban of the Mavericks. Each of these names represents immense wealth and profound social influence. They are the rulers of this commercial sports empire. And today, there was a particularly eye-catching item on their agenda: reviewing Summit Capital's acquisition of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Before the meeting began, the atmosphere in the hotel lounge was somewhat tense. The owners gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. The focus of their conversations, without exception, was the mysterious young Chinese man who was about to make his appearance. "Hey Mark Cuban, have you met that guy named Hua? I heard he's only 20 years old, crazier than you were when you bought the Mavericks." Paul Allen, the owner of the Portland Trail Blazers and co-founder of Microsoft, asked with a smile. Mark Cuban, known for his unconventional style and passion for basketball, was the one being addressed. He curled his lip. 20 years old and made $1 billion from that so-called cryptocurrency. Sounds like someone straight out of a Silicon Valley fairy tale. I'd like to see for myself whether he's a business prodigy or just someone who knows how to burn money. There was a hint of curiosity and skepticism in his words. Meanwhile, in another corner, the elderly owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, Jerry Buss, was speaking to his daughter and future team leader, Jeannie Buss. "Jeannie, remember this, a Chinese owner, especially one so young. A Chinese owner, with such immense wealth behind him, could represent our biggest market in the future. Or he could be an unpredictable variable we can't control. Listen more and speak less later." Most of the other owners feel the same way. Curious, watchful, and with a hint of old money's caution toward the nouveau riche. They need a reason, one strong enough to convince them to accept such an unconventional new member into their elite club. At 10 a.m., the meeting officially began. David Stern presided over the proceedings. After handling a few routine matters, he cleared his throat and, in his uniquely authoritative tone, said, "Everyone, let's move on to the next agenda item, Peak Capital. Regarding the application to acquire the Oklahoma City Thunder, let us now invite Mr. Hua Feng, founder and sole owner of Peak Capital, to address the board." The doors to the conference room swung open and Hua Feng stepped inside. Today, he was once again dressed in a low-key, yet impeccably tailored suit, wearing a perfectly measured smile, showing not the slightest hint of nervousness or unease. He walked confidently up to the podium and gave a slight bow to the 30 faces below, some curious, some scrutinizing, some silent. "Respected Mr. Stern, esteemed team owners, good morning. I am Hua Feng." His voice, young yet exceptionally composed, carried clearly throughout the conference room via the microphone. "I know that, as I stand here today, all of you must have many questions." Hua Feng did not rush into a lengthy speech, but instead, with a very sincere tone, he first raised the questions himself. Why would a 20-year-old Chinese man want to buy an NBA team? Where did his money come from? What will he bring to this league? Will he just treat the team as a toy and toss it aside after a few years? These words almost perfectly voiced the thoughts of every owner present. They hadn't expected that this young man would so directly lay out the doubts in their hearts. "Before I answer these questions, I'd like to show you something first." Huafeng pressed the remote, and instead of complex data charts or emotional team photos, a giant QR code appeared on the screen behind him. A QR code that, in 2012, still seemed novel and unfamiliar to most Americans. This is currently the most popular social app in China, called WeChat. Its functions are similar to a combination of WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, Huafeng explained. And today, WeChat has just launched a brand new feature called Official Accounts. The owners in the audience looked at each other, puzzled, not understanding what he was getting at. What did acquiring a team have to do with a Chinese social app? Ignoring their confusion, Huafeng continued, official accounts allow any brand, organization, or even individual to create their own media publishing platform on it. And just now, our Dingfeng Capital has already helped the Oklahoma City Thunder register the very first official WeChat account in the entire NBA. He pressed the remote again, and the screen displayed the newly registered account. The official account page was completely empty. At this moment, the account didn't have a single follower. But, ladies and gentlemen, Huafeng's tone began to rise, full of infectious energy. I assure you, within 1 year of officially taking over the Thunder, the number of followers on this account will surpass the total number of followers of any other team on both Twitter and Facebook combined. This statement was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, causing a slight stir in the audience. Mark Cuban's face showed a look of interest. Meanwhile, Paul Allen was whispering to the people beside him. I know you might think I'm bragging, Huafeng smiled, but let me tell you how I'm going to achieve this. First, I will provide top-tier Chinese commentary for every Thunder game and broadcast them in high definition for free to fans all over China through this platform. While your games are still relying on traditional paid TV broadcasts, I will already have my own television station in China, reaching hundreds of millions of people. Second, I will use this platform to exclusively release everything about the team. Training videos of Durant, locker room interviews with Westbrook, and highlights of Harden at parties in Los Angeles. I'll make all of these available. I want Chinese fans to feel like they're not just watching a distant American team, but following an exciting drama series about their own home team. Third, and most importantly, I'll use this platform to directly sell the team's officially licensed merchandise, from jerseys and caps to all kinds of co-branded products. Every transaction can be easily completed on a mobile phone. This means I'll bypass all the middlemen and establish the most direct commercial channel from Oklahoma to every household in China. Huafeng paused for a moment, giving the bosses in the audience time to digest this information. Then he presented his core argument. Ladies and gentlemen, you may still think of China as a market, a place that needs to be developed and marketed to. But in my view, that mindset is already outdated. In the era of mobile internet, China is not a market. It is a complete ecosystem. A parallel world with its own unique social media, e-commerce platforms, and payment systems. You can no longer try to understand it through the logic of Facebook and Twitter. You have to integrate into it using the logic of WeChat and Alipay. Huafeng swept his gaze across the room, confident and resolute. I am the only one who can truly lead the NBA into this vast ecosystem, because I understand China, I understand its young people, and I understand its business rules. My acquisition of the Thunder is not just a simple investment. This is the starting point of my entire business blueprint. What I want to do is to create a brand new sports and entertainment IP that spans the Pacific Ocean. The Thunder team is the core of this IP, and the value that this IP can generate, he smiled, believe me, will far exceed the limits of what any of you can imagine today. The entire conference room fell silent. All the bosses were completely stunned by Huafeng's words. Most of them hadn't even figured out how to use Twitter or Facebook. Yet Huafeng was already painting them a futuristic business vision of monetizing IP through WeChat's private domain traffic ecosystem. This kind of dimensionality reduction strike was absolutely overwhelming. For the first time, a grave expression appeared on Cuban's face. He realized that the young man before him was not just anyone. He was an even sharper and more audacious business genius than himself. Jerry Buss's eyes were also filled with admiration. He knew that Huafeng wasn't just presenting a plan. He was giving all the NBA owners an invaluable lesson on the business of the future. Sitting at the head of the table, Stern wore a satisfied smile on his face. He knew he hadn't misjudged the person. That concludes my presentation. Huafeng bowed to the audience once again. Now, I am willing to answer any questions you may have. However, no one raised a question, not because there were none, but because they had all been awed by the grand narrative Huafeng had constructed. They needed time to digest and reflect. Stern broke the silence. Since there are no questions, let's proceed with the vote as per protocol, he said. Those in favor of Summit Capital's acquisition of the Thunder, please raise your hand. He was the first to raise his hand. Immediately after, Jerry Buss raised his hand, followed by Mark Cuban and Paul Allen. One after another, arms representing power and wealth were raised in the conference room. In the end, all 30 hands went up. The vote was unanimous. Stern stood up, a genuine smile on his face, and led the applause. Thunderous applause filled the conference room. This was the highest form of welcome this elite club could offer to a new monarch about to board. The news of the league council's unanimous approval spread like a hurricane. Within half an hour after the meeting ended, the news had spread throughout the entire North American sports world. ESPN's scoop master, Adrian Wojnarowski, known as Woj, was the first to break this major news on his Twitter. According to sources, the NBA Board of Governors had unanimously approved Summit Capital's acquisition of the Oklahoma City Thunder. The league was about to welcome the youngest owner in its history, and also the first Chinese owner. A new era was about to begin. This tweet was retweeted tens of thousands of times within just 1 hour, and the entire internet was in an uproar. Fans, after their initial shock, were mostly excited, especially Thunder fans, who spread the news joyfully, cheering as if they had already won the championship in advance. In their eyes, this young owner, who spared no expense to keep the Thunder's big three, and demonstrated extraordinary wealth and charisma, was the chosen one, destined to lead them to glory. Meanwhile, the media were frantically digging up information about Huafeng. Everything about him and Summit Capital, his age, his nationality, his legendary path to wealth, and his business presentation at the board meeting that was nothing short of a dimensionality-reducing blow, was reported with embellishments. Overnight, the name Huafeng transformed from a mysterious rumor on Wall Street into a legendary figure known throughout America. All the praise and all the spotlights were focused on this new king about to take the throne. Meanwhile, as a remnant of the old era, Clay Bennett was completely forgotten in the corner, appearing utterly desolate and embarrassed. He sat in his office overlooking the entire city, his face ashen, as he watched the news footage of Huafeng being surrounded by a sea of reporters at the entrance of the St. Regis Hotel in New York. He felt like a complete clown. He had originally thought he could use stalling tactics to play Huafeng and other potential buyers against each other, driving up the sale price of the Thunder to an even higher level. He had even fantasized that perhaps some Middle Eastern oil prince or Russian energy tycoon might offer an even more outrageous price than $550 million. But now, all his fantasies had been shattered. Huafeng hadn't given him any chance to raise the price at all. Before the league council's vote, Huafeng's team of lawyers had already sent him a final ultimatum, a legally binding formal acquisition agreement with a strict deadline attached. The agreement stipulated that if Bennett did not sign the contract within 24 hours after league approval, the $550 million offer would be permanently withdrawn. At the same time, Amanda Reed's PR team also accidentally leaked to the media that Bennett was being forced to sell the team due to financial troubles with his personal assets. This news completely destroyed the image he had tried to portray of a loving father, reluctantly parting with the team for the honor of the city. On the local Goose City forums, fans had already stopped calling him Mr. Bennett and started referring to him as that stingy old miser. A combination of cutting off his last lifeline and a public opinion onslaught from Huafeng left him utterly defenseless. He knew he no longer had any bargaining chips. The entire league had already opened its arms to welcome the new owner, and all the city's fans were spitting on him, the deposed king. If he went back on his word now, not only would he lose the $550 million lifeline, but he would also become a pariah in all of Oklahoma. The reputation his family had built locally over decades would be destroyed overnight. He had lost completely and utterly, but he was unwilling to accept it. A rage at being defeated by someone so much younger, in a way that bordered on humiliation, and a complicated attachment to the Thunder, the team he had personally nurtured, drove him to make one last struggle before stepping down. He dialed Liam Costin's number. Mr. Bennett's voice was hoarse and low. "I can sign the acquisition agreement, but I have one additional condition." On the other end, Liam had already received instructions from Huafeng. He replied calmly, "Mr. Bennett, please go ahead. In addition to the $550 million in cash, I want 1% of the team's regular season ticket revenue for the next 5 years as extra compensation." Bennett almost gritted his teeth as he stated this condition. He knew it was unreasonable, even laughable. For a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars, this mere 1% of ticket revenue was insignificant. He wasn't asking for it because of the money. He just wanted to disgust Huafeng a little. He wanted to use this method to regain a bit of his dignity as the seller, to prove that he wasn't simply being trampled on, but that there had been some tough bargaining. It was a pitiful and sad form of self-consolation. Liam was silent on the other end for a moment, as if pausing for a few seconds to warn him. Then he replied, "Mr. Bennett, in principle, we do not accept any new terms being added to the final agreement." But Bennett's heart was in his throat. "My boss, Mr. Hua, asked me to pass on a message to you." Liam's tone became somewhat subtle. He said, "An era is about to end. Giving the old king a dignified funeral is the mark of a true victor, so we agree to your additional terms. Please add the relevant clauses to the agreement, and we will sign. Hearing this response, Bennett was stunned. He had imagined that Huafeng would fly into a rage, would use legal language to refute his unreasonable demands, or might even threaten to cancel the deal outright. What he hadn't expected was this. The other party had actually agreed so easily, and even offered him such a dignified way out, a victor's grace. Bennett mulled over these words again and again, and an unprecedentedly complex emotion welled up inside him. There was humiliation and anger, but even more so, a powerless sense of defeat. Huafeng's strength lay not only in his overwhelming wealth and intelligence, but also in his ability to see through people's hearts, and to maintain his composure and grace, even when holding all the advantages. Bennett felt that he hadn't lost to a businessman, but to a true king. All his unwillingness, all his struggles, turned to dust in that moment. Fine. Bennett forced the word out through gritted teeth. I'll have my lawyer prepare the final documents. The contract will be signed in my office tomorrow morning. After hanging up the phone, Bennett slumped wearily into his chair. He gazed out at the city, a city he had once been so proud of, and now it felt so unfamiliar. He knew that starting tomorrow, this place would no longer belong to him. An era that belonged to Clay Bennett was about to end, abruptly and disgracefully, in a way he had never imagined. And all of this happened simply because, one distant summer, in order to save a mere few million in luxury tax, he entertained a thought he never should have had. That single moment of weakness cost him everything. The next day, New York was bathed in bright sunshine, and the city seemed to be singing in harmony. It felt as if the weather had been specially arranged to celebrate this historic moment. At exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, in the massive conference room at Peak Capital's Manhattan headquarters, a room that had once witnessed billion-dollar deals and the return of the wolves, today had been transformed into the venue for a signing ceremony. In front of the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows, a long mahogany signing table was placed at the center, with the massive logos of Peak Capital and the Oklahoma City Thunder as the backdrop. Nearly 100 top media outlets from around the world had already set up their cameras and equipment, crowding the scene to capacity. Under Amanda Reed's meticulous planning, this signing ceremony was no longer just the completion of a business deal. It had become a carefully orchestrated, globally broadcasted launch event. On one side of the table sat Clay Bennett and his equally ashen-faced team of lawyers. Today, Bennett was dressed in an expensive suit, his hair carefully styled, trying to maintain the last vestiges of his dignity. But the puffiness under his eyes and his distracted gaze betrayed the exhaustion and unwillingness he felt inside. He looked like a king, about to be sent to the guillotine, bidding his final farewell. On the other side of the table, however, was the scene of a victor. Huafeng sat confidently in the center seat, flanked by the now fully loyal Sam Presti and the head of the legal team. Behind them stood Liam Costa, Sophia Chen, Amanda Reed, and the other core members of the Wolfpack Project, all dressed in suits, lined up neatly like the most loyal royal guards. Their faces were lit up with confident and excited smiles. They were witnessing the very first legend they had helped create. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Amanda Reed personally took on the role of host. Dressed in a crisp white suit, she walked up to the podium, instantly drawing the attention of all the reporters. Thank you to all our friends from the media for attending the signing ceremony between Summit Capital and the American Professional Basketball Club. Today, we are honored to witness a historic moment together. She didn't waste any words and got straight to the point. Now, please welcome Mr. Clay Bennett, chairman of the American Professional Basketball Club, and Mr. Huafeng, founder of Summit Capital, to officially sign the ownership transfer agreement for the Oklahoma Thunder. Under the gaze of hundreds of cameras, Liam Costa placed a thick agreement, mounted in a blue leather folder, in the center of the signing table. Clay Bennett's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the agreement. He picked up the expensive Mont Blanc pen, its tip hovering above the signature line, but he hesitated to sign. He looked up. He took one last look at the young man sitting across from him. Huafeng wore a faint smile, his gaze calm as still water. He didn't rush him, nor did he show any impatience. He simply sat there quietly, as if appreciating the final touch on an oil painting. A deep sense of helplessness welled up in Bennett's heart. He knew that from the moment he considered trading Harden, from the moment this young man returned to life before him, his own fate had already been sealed. All his struggles and unwillingness seemed so insignificant and laughable in the face of the tide of history. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, then suddenly opened them and let his pen fall, making a rustling sound on the paper. Clayton Bennett. When he finished writing the last letter, he felt as if all the strength in his body had been drained. He pushed the agreement to the other side of the table. An era had ended. Huafeng picked up the pen, his movements crisp and decisive, without the slightest hesitation. In the buyer's column, she signed her name, Lin Fong, in bold, flowing strokes. Her signature was just like her personality, generous, confident, and full of the power to control everything. As she finished the last character, the flashes in the conference room erupted like a summer thunderstorm, so bright that it was hard to keep one's eyes open. Amanda Reed's staff, who had been prepared in advance, popped open the champagne at just the right moment. The golden liquid burst forth, accompanied by thunderous applause. Let us congratulate Mr. Huafeng. From this moment on, he officially becomes the new owner of the Oklahoma City Thunder, Amanda announced in her most exuberant tone. Huafeng stood up and proactively extended his hand to Bennett. Bennett, his face ashen, shook hands with him. The moment their hands met, it was as if they were symbolically passing on the crown. The formal handover of the new kingship was now complete. Escorted by bodyguards, Bennett left the venue through a side door, looking utterly dejected. He did not accept any interviews. His era had ended, and no one cared about his feelings anymore. Meanwhile, Huafeng was instantly surrounded by countless reporters and microphones. Mr. Hua, congratulations on becoming the youngest owner in NBA history. How do you feel right now? Mr. Hua, the $550 million acquisition set a record for a non-super team transaction. Do you think it was worth it? Mr. Hua, what are your plans for the future of the Thunder? Do you believe the trio can bring you a championship? Questions surged in like a tide. Huafeng raised his hand to signal for silence, and the venue instantly fell quiet. Everyone perked up their ears, waiting for the new king's first address.